We are just a week away from Pennsylvania's special election. Republican State Representative Rick Saccone and Democratic former prosecutor Conor Lamb are fighting for the key House seat.
You'll remember that seat was vacated when Representative Tim Murphy resigned after it was revealed that he urged a woman he was having an affair with to get an abortion. Saccone spoke to CBS News just last night about the president's proposed tariffs.
Well, you know, I've always worked closely with the steel industry, and I've always worked to protect the jobs of our United Steelworkers. And I believe our steel workers can compete with anybody in the world. They're the finest steel workers anywhere in the world, as long as the playing field is level. Some of these countries that are competing with us have slanted the field a little bit. I think President Trump's just trying to balance that scale back out. Now, he's put some things forth. I think there'll be he likes to lay down a line and negotiate. That's a strategy, and you got to give him credit for that. So we'll see how it plays out. It's going to move. The line will move a little bit, but he wants to make sure that the other countries aren't cheating us. I believe in free trade. I'm a free trader, but a fair trade. We got to make sure it's fair.
All right, for more now, we want to bring in John Micek. He's a political columnist and opinions editor for PennLive.com, joining us now. So, John, we heard Rick Saccone talk a little bit about the steel industry there, that he's about, fair, good trade. But I'm wondering, in Pennsylvania, just what do you think? Do you think the tariffs, tax cuts, immigration, do you think any of these conversations that we've been having publicly in the sort of across the country, do you think any of them will factor in the special election?
Anne-Marie, Pennsylvania voters are having these same conversations about those issues you alluded to as voters are nationwide. The issue of tariffs in southwestern Pennsylvania, where the steel industry was hollowed out about 2 decades ago, remains a potent one. Mr. Saccone is right to hone in on that one. It's one that plays well. It's a bit more delicate of a line for Conor Lamb, the Democrat in this race to walk. Both expressed some tentative support for Trump's tariff proposals at a debate the other day. But this is an issue that plays well in that part of the state.
So let's ask this question. It's something Anne-Marie and I were talking about earlier this morning. If these tariffs were to go into place the way President Trump is suggesting that they go into place, would the steel industry come roaring back in, for example, western Pennsylvania? I think that's what a lot of people are hoping in that part of the country. The question is whether these steel companies, will take the money that they would now earn, the revenue that would be generated by these tariffs, and rebuild that industry, or would it be used to, I don't want to be as cynical as to suggest lining the pockets of executives, but would that industry come roaring back the way we saw it in the 60s, 70s, and 80s?
No, that's a fiction. I mean, Vlad, consider this. When President George W. Bush imposed tariffs on steel in 2002, they lost 200,000 jobs in the 20 months that those tariffs were in place. That's more than are employed in the steel industry as a whole today. So the idea that the industry would suddenly be roaring back because of the Trump administration imposing tariffs is a fiction. The economy in the greater Pittsburgh area has moved on to life sciences. It's moved on to eds and meds. It's moved on to more high-tech manufacturing that require fewer jobs. We, in fact, saw that here. There's a steel plant in the nearby town of Steelton. We went in to photograph that, and the one thing we were struck by was the degree of automation. The industry has changed. This is something that plays well with the base, but the idea that it's suddenly going to be 1965 and everyone's going to be coming home from the plant with lunch pails simply isn't real.
So the President Trump, did win the district in Pennsylvania by about 20 points in the 2016 election. But there's a new poll out by Emerson College, and it shows Conor Lamb ahead of Saccone for the first time. So what's going on with this shift, do you think?
And there are two key numbers in that poll, Emery. That's the one that shows Conor Lamb up 48 to 45% over Saccone. It's a 4.8 margin of error, and there are 7% undecided in that poll. It is a statistical dead heat between these two candidates right now, which in a universe where Donald Trump is running well ought not to be happening. Again, this is a district that Donald Trump carried by 19 points by 19 points in 2016. The fact that it's a race now speaks, one, to Trump's weakness. It also speaks a bit to the relative strengths of Conor Lamb and some of the weaknesses of Rick Saccone, who is not exactly an ideal candidate for that seat. I mean, this is a race that's very much about these two candidates.
Yeah, so Republicans have poured around $9 million for Saccone's campaign. And as you point out, it's largely considered Trump country. Is the GOP right now worried about losing this House seat, especially since, you know, and this is again the chatter you've been hearing from Democrats, but that they're expecting, some people originally called it a blue wave, now they're saying perhaps even a blue tsunami.
It's, you know, Vlad, it's entirely possible. Conor Lamb raised $3.3 million in the first 2 months of this year. A truly shocking amount compared to $703,000 for Saccone, who needs all the help that he's going to get. Republicans are clearly worried about this. You've had Paul Ryan's PAC on the ground there since the tail end of last year, trying to build support and trying to raise money. This race, make no mistake about it, is the canary in the coal mine for Republicans in 2018. If this seat flips in the heart of Trump country, that'll be 3 consecutive political defeats for President Donald Trump, who came into 3 very important races: Ed Gillespie in Virginia last November, Roy Moore in Alabama last December, and now this one, and who's thrown his backing and his political capital to these candidates. If Trump is rebuked here, that's going to be a very stinging defeat for the White House.
So Vice President Joe Biden, from Delaware, but actually was born in Scranton, Pennsylvania. He's going to be campaigning with Lamb next week. And President Trump will hold a rally for Saccone this weekend. Perhaps this is an indication of just how important this race is to the two parties. How do you think these high-profile endorsements will impact the election?
You know, I've always seen endorsements in much the same people look at baseball cards. They're fun for candidates to collect and trade with their friends, but I'm not sure how many voters are actually swung by actual endorsements. Certainly, there's something that they augur to the candidate's advantage. The interesting thing about that Trump rally, Anne-Marie, is that it's now listed as tentative by the campaign. The White House saying that the White House that he'll come in. If it looks like Saccone could use the bump, but if he's clearly winning or clearly losing at that point, they might give it a miss. With that Emerson poll now showing the race in the margin, it might be an instance where President Trump feels like he has to come in and give this guy a last-minute bump.
John Micek, so great to talk to you. Thank you very much for breaking down this really important special election. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.